Hi, John Sortino, your course instructor with Lesson 2. What is an entrepreneur and what do entrepreneurs do? Thesaurus lists entrepreneurs as business person, a tycoon, an industrialist, a financier, a mogul. The dictionary, an entrepreneur is a noun. It says an entrepreneur is a person who starts a business and is willing to risk loss in order to make money. Another definition, the dictionary, an entrepreneur is one who organizes, manages, and takes on the risks of a business or enterprise. That word risk keeps coming up, especially when you're describing an entrepreneur. A lot of people just say an entrepreneur is a risk taker. I'm sure all of you have heard that. But to me, there's so many other jobs out there that you can also list as risk-taking jobs. How about driving a big semi-truck, especially in the snow up and down the mountains of Vermont? Or a police officer, doctor performs operations. How about a parent? Well, that's a risky job. There are lots of jobs that have risks. One of my goals is to help you minimize risks for future entrepreneurs, especially for your children. So the question is, how do we minimize risks for future entrepreneurs? And the answer is by better understanding the job of an entrepreneur and by learning the skills an entrepreneur needs to run a business. The following is a partial list of job responsibilities for an entrepreneur. At least this is a list I found to be things I was doing when I was running my business. An entrepreneur is expected to grow the business. An entrepreneur is expected to think of ways to make it better, both financially and to his customers. There's so many examples of what an entrepreneur would do to make his business better. It might be that he needs to keep it cleaner, he needs to better advertise, needs to better sell it, make a better product. The list goes on and on. There's no ending to how many different ways a business could be run better. An entrepreneur is expected to recruit, hire, and train employees. At the Vermont Teddy Bear Company, we used to put an ad in the newspaper when we were hiring because we were growing pretty fast. And I didn't get a lot of people responding to my ads because of the way the ads were written. It had too many things in the kind of person we were looking for. So I simplified the ad. One of the things I've learned is that ads appear alphabetically. So my ad used to say bear person needed, must like bears, and like making bears. And pretty much we only hired people who really liked teddy bears. And it turned out to be a pretty good ad. But I'll tell you, recruiting people, hiring and training people is quite a job. Another thing an entrepreneur must do is make rules, like an employment rules, come up with an employee handbook, rules of how that company works together and all the people that are in it, how they work together. An entrepreneur is expected to set up charts of organization. Who works for who does what, who do you need to speak to if this is what your job is? What are you expected to do in your job? An entrepreneur is expected to pay taxes. Working with accountants and the things you can do in your company to either minimize taxes or better understand taxes is an ongoing job. It's important to have good accountants. An entrepreneur is expected to understand financials, cash flow, balance sheets, profit and loss statements. An entrepreneur is expected to know how to measure performance by different departments in his company, along with measuring the performance of his company, of course. One of the things I used to think a lot about was, okay, I'm running this business. What are my responsibilities? Who am I responsible to? Well, I used to list them as I was responsible to the workers and I had a teddy bear factory, so all the workers in my factory. I was responsible to, of course, my customers. I was part of a community, so I was responsible to the community. Very responsible for my family. I was responsible for the bank. Um, we did borrow $50,000, so I was responsible in paying that money back. Especially responsible to stockholders and the board of directors. And lastly, I used to think about the fact that I was responsible to myself. So an entrepreneur has all these responsibilities out there, and it's important to learn that being responsible is such an important part of the job. An entrepreneur is expected to know how to communicate. Now, you communicate to many people in a company. You communicate to customers, so you have advertising and marketing campaigns. You communicate to your customers in the packages that you put your product in or anything close to that. You communicate with your employees by letting them know whether they've done a good job or a bad job or whatever's going on. There's a lot of communication going on. An entrepreneur is expected to have vision. By vision, what I'm saying here is an entrepreneur is expected to lead and explain where he's leading his company. In my case, I set out to go public 3 years before we went public. So my course was to grow the company as fast as I could. We made the Inc. magazine fastest 500 Inc. magazine fastest 500 growing list 3 times in a row. And I wanted to have a good customer service company, so we actually were known as our customer service, things like that. My vision was to make the very best teddy bear in the world and to keep my customers happy so they keep wanting to buy more of them, and to grow the company to way past where when I left it off at $20 million. We went from in 1989 our sales were 400,000. The next year 1.7 million. The year after that we went to 5.6 million. The year after that we went to 10 million, and the year after that we went to 17 million. So that's kind of the vision I'm talking about here, things like that. An entrepreneur needs to be resilient. What does that mean? Well, there's going to be a lot of problems with the customers, with your customers or what you're dealing with, as an entrepreneur. So you need to kind of not have all those problems affect you in a way that you can't do your job. So resilience is being really important. An entrepreneur is expected to plan, evaluate, execute, and then reevaluate that plan. An entrepreneur never stops learning. To this very day, I learn from anybody I can about running a business because there's so much to it. And very importantly, an entrepreneur is expected to understand how to make money and increase the assets of his or her company. Now, those are just some of the partial list of the job responsibilities of an entrepreneur. Now I'd like to take that down a little bit, because when a child's an entrepreneur, I don't see them with all of these responsibilities. So I've redefined a child entrepreneur, a kid entrepreneur, is pretty much just someone who's making money, someone who could save money and handle the responsibilities of school, family, and friends, and being a child. There's a lot to it. So I'm kind of adding all the other responsibilities that a child has and adding one more, which is someone who makes money and can save money. That pretty much concludes the lesson, and I have a little homework for you out there. What I'd like you to do is to spend some time explaining and talking about what an entrepreneur is with your child. And then, depending on where you live, in my case, I live in Cambridge, and we'll talk a little bit more about where I live in Cambridge, but I'd like you to take an area of where you live and list the many entrepreneurs that have businesses in that area. Then I want you to select one of those entrepreneurs and do an interview with your child with one of the entrepreneurs. Now, it could be anyone. It could be a person that owns a local store in town. It could be someone who has a truck business. It could be a plumber. It could be anyone, but anyone who has their own business, and ask them some questions about that business. Ask them the following. Ask them if they consider themselves entrepreneurs. Ask them how they grew their business. Ask them how do they communicate with customers, employees, and other people about their business. Ask them, are they happy that they own their own business? And finally, ask the business owner, why did they get into business? Well, that's it for this lesson 2. I look forward to seeing you and meeting you in the live sessions. Remember, our next lesson, lesson 3, is Entrepreneurs by the Numbers and why schools are not teaching our kids on how to run and own their own business. And the lessons in school that you can incorporate into entrepreneur lessons. Thanks all. I will see you in lesson 3. Bye. Hi,